Hello and welcome back to the Unnamed Movie Podcast. I'm Ben, and today I'm going to be reviewing In the Heights, the newest film by John M. Chu, the same guy who directed Crazy Rich Asians, which I was a huge fan of. But before we get started, I just want to say thank you to Audacity, because without Audacity, I never would have had the opportunity to make this video twice, because their software failed me and crashed in the middle of recording and didn't even notify me. So, made a long-ass video and no audio. Here we go again. I was really excited for this movie. It looked fantastic, but I went into it with a little bit of trepidation because historically I've never been the biggest fan of musicals. There are a couple of standouts, things like La La Land, but for the most part, as a rule, they've never been my favorite. And I wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to deal with 2.5 hours of singing and dancing without losing my mind, but good lord, was I wrong. Also worth pointing out that watching these incredibly talented actors sing and dance for 2.5 hours really served to show me just how completely and unequivocally untalented I am. A lot of what makes this movie feel so real is the sense of community you get while watching it. I'm from South Carolina, and one of my best friends moved to the Bronx for school a few years ago. And me and a group of friends went and visited him once. And, while the Bronx is very different than Washington Heights culturally, there were a lot of similarities as far as that sense of community goes. We'd see the same people getting the same bagels and coffee from the same corner store every morning. And, this movie gets weird sometimes. I mean, people are constantly breaking into song and dance, and every once in a while there are just random little animations on the screen. But it's that feeling of community that grounds it and makes it feel real the entire time. And a pretty large portion of this movie revolves around the dreams of the people in that community. Whether it's people coming to terms with what they might have to sacrifice to accomplish those dreams, or people trying to even find the courage to go after them because they're so afraid of, failing somebody who has faith in them, or feeling stupid when it falls through and you fail. And, that feels real. I identify with that. I think most people do. We all have a dream and we all want it to work out, but there are a lot of broken dreams out there. We see it with everybody. We see it with our parents. I'm sure my dad didn't want to do what he does now for a living, and your parents are probably the same way. And there's a lot of this in that movie. It's not just about the dreams of the main characters, but it's about the dreams their parents had and whether they succeeded or failed, and, what really amounted of those dreams once they actually got them. But more than just being a movie about dreams, this is a celebration of culture. It's like a window into a way of life and thinking that most of us will never see. And it kind of looks at the American dream and dissects it. And, yeah, you may have more opportunities here to create a successful life than you would in other places, but it's not without its downfalls. Whether that's the expectation to learn an entirely new language, or, the pressure to throw away that sense of culture that you have, that you got from your parents, and embrace an entirely new one that probably seems completely alien to you. And, I grew up in a pretty rural area for the most part, and when I was watching this, I kind of felt jealous of that life they got to lead. There's something about being in a tight-knit community like that, and yeah, it's just a community, it's just a group of people who live close to each other, but this movie really makes it feel like all of these characters, whether they're main characters or just ancillary ones, makes them feel like they're all family. Like you pick any random character in this movie and you know what they want, what their dreams are, what they're struggling with. And that's pretty impressive. I mean, normally they don't put that much character development into even the main characters, but even the little side characters that don't really matter to the story at all here, everything about them. It's really pretty impressive, and they did a fair amount of world building just in the barrio itself. Barrio? I'm not sure. Anyways, just super impressive. Not to mention the music and dancing in this. The songs flow from one to another, and there's this one dancing scene. It's in a club. You'll know it when you see it. Good lord. I was sitting there like, God, I wish I could dance like that. I can't dance at all. I don't know what I'm doing on a dance floor, so I just don't even try. But good God, these people are talented. Overall, this movie's just so much fun to watch. It's such a ride. Everything from the beautiful cinematography to the incredible singing and dancing or the amazing storytelling. It's so good. And it's such an event to see it. And that kind of leads me into the only con I have for this movie. And it's not even a failing of the movie. I don't know if there's a lot of rewatchability here. And it's not because the movie's not fantastic, but it's kind of just like, the decisions that the characters are going to make. And once you know that, it kind of changes the way you view the movie a little bit. It's not as much excitement in watching it. Maybe if I waited 3 or 4 years, I could watch it again. A great example of another film that's like that is La La Land, actually, another musical, which probably one of my favorite movies that I've ever seen. I watched it once when it came out in theaters, and I still haven't watched it. I may review it soon, but it's just like, sometimes you need that time to like get away from it, forget everything about it, and then come back to it and have another like great viewing experience. This definitely isn't like a Marvel movie. You can't just throw it on repeat, and that might be the only downside of it, but that's the cost of making a film that's like this. All right, guys, so I'm about to drop a pretty big spoiler here, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, fast forward to the time on the screen for the wrap-up and final rating, or go watch the movie and then come back. So my grandma was my favorite person, and she was this shining light of honesty and unconditional love that really held our family together. And there's a scene in this movie where Abuela, who's like kind of the adoptive grandmother of the entire community, she was always making people food and giving advice and, getting together and singing with them, which is why everybody called her their Abuela. She passes away. And it's after, she spent a night of singing and cooking and laughing with all of her loved ones. And then she passes in bed shortly after. And I remember what it was like when my grandmother passed. And, we were all left sitting in her house that we had so many memories in and just feeling empty and lonely in there because she was such a presence, in our family that when she was gone, it just felt like we were all alone. And this movie does a really good job of showing what that's like. And, it's heavy and it's dark and maybe it's not the most fun to see, but when a movie can make me feel the way that scene did, that's a really good sign. That's impressive. I don't get like that often. And I had to just pause it and cry for like 5 minutes. But it's not just dark to be dark. It's a beautiful moment and maybe brings the characters even closer together. But I just thought it was worth noting how beautiful that moment was and how well they did it. It felt like it was written by somebody who has really experienced that kind of loss. And sorry, guys, got a little bit emotional there. I had to step away for a sec. Anyways, it's just really impressive when a movie can make you feel that kind of way. That felt so intense and real and beautiful. And it's stuff like that in this movie that, anybody can relate to and appreciate. I mean, there's so many beautiful moments like that in this movie, and it's not a depressing movie. It is happy. It's beautiful, but I just thought it was worth noting how impressive it was that it made me feel those kind of emotions. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. I sat around afterwards wondering to myself, is there anything I could have done to cut down the runtime to make this any better? And I really don't think so. I mean, I watched 2.5 hours of a musical, and I was left wanting more, and that's rare for someone like me. I'm not a big musical guy. There's nothing I would change about this movie. 10 out of 10. This was awesome. I really thoroughly enjoyed this. And if you give it a chance, I think you will too, even if you're not a huge fan of musicals. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Unnamed Movie Podcast. I'm going to be dropping a review. Maybe not a review, maybe that's not the right word, but I'm going to be dropping my thoughts on the newest Witcher 2 trailer, which I'm pretty excited to see. Haven't watched it yet. I'm not the biggest fan of the first season. There are a couple of standout moments, but I love those books, and I can't wait to talk about it. Anyways, you guys have a good day.